The story begins on Staten Island, where a high school student named Venus checks her email and finds out she's been accepted into CalArts for photography. She starts typing a reply, but freezes. The idea of leaving her mother alone right now doesn't feel right. Before she can decide, a notification pops up. Her crush, JP, has tagged her in a photo she took. Venus smiles and likes it. Moments later, her phone rings with a video call from her best friend, Sydney. The two chat casually, jumping from topic to topic, until Sydney brings up a new online game called Nerve that's exploding in popularity. Curious, Venus watches a video about the game. A robotic voice explains the rules.
Like Truth or Dare, minus the truth. Watchers pay to watch. Players play to win cash and glory. Are you a watcher or a player?
Players complete strange and risky dares for cash. When signing up, users must choose to be either anonymous spectators or active players. Sydney is instantly excited, but Venus feels something is off. She finds the whole thing unsettling. Later, Venus heads into the kitchen and talks with her mom, Nancy, about college. Nancy has no idea Venus applied to CalArts. She assumes her daughter will stay on Staten Island so they can continue living together. Venus suggests renting out the room that once belonged to her late brother, but Nancy shuts the idea down, still unable to cope with the loss. That evening, Venus goes to a school football game to take photos for the student newspaper. Sydney asks someone to record her for Nerve before she meets up with the cheer squad. Everything seems normal during the routine, but at the end, Sydney shocks the crowd by turning around and exposing herself. It turns out this was a Nerve challenge, and she gets paid for it. Soon, teens all over the country are completing increasingly stupid and dangerous dares for quick cash, like eating dog food, grabbing onto a moving police car while skateboarding, or jumping off cliffs. After the game, Venus and her friends head to a fast food restaurant. A heated argument breaks out about whether Nerve is harmless fun or seriously wrong. Sydney takes the opportunity to accuse Venus of always playing it safe, saying she's just a spectator in her own life. When Venus pushes back, Sydney dares her to ask JP out. Venus refuses, so Sydney does it herself. JP bluntly says Venus isn't his type. Heartbroken and embarrassed, Venus storms out of the restaurant. She rides her bike through the streets, screaming in frustration, while non-stop texts from her friends only make things worse. When she finally gets home, her emotions boil over. Determined to prove she's more than a background character, Venus signs up for Nerve as a player. The robotic voice returns, explaining the rules in detail. The two players with the most watchers reach the final round. Every challenge must be recorded to count. Quitting or failing means elimination, and hesitation will destroy you. The game asks for her fingerprint and instantly builds a profile using her private online data, favorite books, habits, even bank information.
Hey, this is V. I'm not here right now. V, you have to sign up and watch
Her first challenge appears. Kiss a stranger in a restaurant for $100. Venus calls her friend Tommy for a ride. He warns her that kids have actually died because of Nerve, but Venus doesn't believe him. She argues that if it were truly dangerous, it would have been shut down already. Tommy explains that the game uses the deep web and can't be stopped because every user becomes part of the server. At the restaurant, Venus hesitates, scanning the room, while her phone reminds her she's on a timer. Finally, she chooses a guy named Ian. He's reading her favorite book. Venus walks over and starts talking about the book to get his attention, then suddenly leans in and kisses him while Tommy films. She counts the seconds silently, pulls away, and rushes back to Tommy to check if the money went through. Right then, music starts blasting in the restaurant. Ian jumps up, singing and dancing on the chairs, locking eyes with Venus as the crowd reacts. Venus initially thinks Ian is singing for her, but Tommy quickly explains that this is also part of a Nerve challenge. Ian gets his payout and joins Venus and Tommy at the table. Once things calm down, Ian explains that the book he was reading was actually given to him as part of an earlier challenge. Right then, both Ian and Venus receive a new notification offering $200 if they travel into the city together. Venus immediately refuses, saying she only joined the game for one harmless challenge and doesn't want to go further. Tommy supports her decision. Ian pushes back, telling Venus that she only does things because her friends pressure her into them. Hurt by his words, Venus watches Ian walk away. After a moment, she follows him into the parking lot and tells him she's not the kind of person who blindly accepts dares. Ian responds that he still wants her to come with him anyway. After a brief pause, Venus climbs onto Ian's motorcycle and the two ride across the bridge toward the city, recording everything for the game. At the same time, Sydney is out with friends, completing another nerve challenge, using a phone app to fake fart sounds near strangers. The stunt earns her plenty of attention and followers, but her mood shifts when she realizes Venus has joined the game and is gaining viewers fast. When the motorcycle ride ends, Venus and Ian split up to complete their next individual challenges. Venus's next dare is to try on a dress inside an extremely expensive boutique. Back at home, Nancy starts receiving notifications because the shared bank account is suddenly being credited with money under Venus's name. Worried, she tries calling her daughter, but Venus ignores the calls as she enters the store. She nearly removes a dress from a mannequin, but a sales associate stops her and brings a duplicate instead. Venus rushes into a fitting room, records herself putting on the dress, and completes the challenge just in time. She looks at herself in the mirror, clearly liking what she sees. Moments later, Ian finds her. He's received a similar challenge to try on clothes. He films Venus for his viewers as well. Meanwhile, still concerned for her safety, Tommy signs up for Nerve as a spectator, so he can keep a close watch on her. Venus and Ian decide to have fun with it, picking out shoes to match their outfits. While they're distracted, another player sneaks into the fitting rooms and steals their clothes as part of a separate challenge. Soon, Venus and Ian realize their original clothes are gone. At the same time, they receive a new dare offering $500 if they leave the store immediately. The outfits they're wearing are far too expensive to pay for, so they decide to abandon them and sneak out wearing only their underwear. At first, no one notices, but eventually, they're spotted. With no other choice, they sprint toward the exit as everyone watches, causing their follower counts to skyrocket. Outside, near Ian's motorcycle, they find a bag containing the designer clothes along with the receipts. Thanks to a tip from one of the spectators, they realize they can keep the items without guilt. As they head toward the location of the next challenge, Sydney calls Tommy, demanding to know what Venus is really doing. She completely loses it when she learns Venus is now ranked among the top 10 players. Not long after, Venus and Ian arrive at a tattoo studio. Venus's challenge is to get a tattoo, but Ian gets to choose the design. He scrolls through options but doesn't like any of them, so he decides to draw something himself and asks the tattoo artist to refine it. Venus sits in the chair as the needle starts working, clearly in pain, while her audience continues to grow. To distract her, Ian plays music she likes and listens as she talks about her brother who passed away. When the tattoo is finished, Venus looks in the mirror and is pleasantly surprised to see a lighthouse, the same symbol featured in her favorite book. Meanwhile, at a party, Sydney notices that Venus's popularity keeps rising, and her jealousy deepens. Tommy watches everything unfold through the app and finally snaps. He calls a hacker friend, determined to dig deeper and find out what Nerve really is. Tommy starts digging deeper into Ian's background because he can't find him on any public websites. His hacker friend sends him an access key to the deep web, and that's when Tommy uncovers something disturbing. Ian has played Nerve before. Even worse, he was involved in a past incident that resulted in another player's death. Panicked, Tommy immediately tries calling Venus to warn her, but she doesn't answer. Back with Ian and Venus, they receive a new challenge that raises the stakes dramatically. Ian must ride his motorcycle through New York City at 60 miles per hour while blindfolded, and Venus has to guide him with directions. The reward is $10,000. Venus refuses at first, saying it's way too dangerous. At that moment, Ty shows up and snaps a photo of Venus with a car decal. After he leaves, Ian convinces Venus to accept the challenge. Once they agree, a girl at the party turns on the TV so everyone can watch live. Ian covers his helmet visor with the sticker, blocking his vision completely, and they take off. When Venus confirms the traffic light is green, Ian starts riding, but his steering is shaky. They come dangerously close to another car, forcing Venus to physically push and steady him while giving rapid instructions. She guides him through the streets as his speed keeps increasing. They nearly crash at a red light, but Venus tells Ian to accelerate and they make it through at the very last second. After passing through a tunnel, the countdown finally ends. Ian removes the cover just in time to stop the bike inches before slamming into a gate. The challenge is completed successfully, and later at the party, the adrenaline peaks as Ian and Venus celebrate by kissing. Sydney watches all of this, overwhelmed with jealousy. She asks her viewers to give her a better challenge. That's when Ty approaches her and suggests they team up. Sydney rejects the idea, but Ty leaves his phone number before walking away. Meanwhile, Nancy calls Tommy, worried because she keeps receiving money from anonymous donors and thinks her bank account is being hacked. Tommy lies, saying Venus is playing online poker and winning big, just to keep Nancy from getting suspicious. Back with Ian and Venus, the two enjoy a quiet moment riding a carousel together while talking about their family situations. Everything is still being streamed. Sydney repeatedly tries calling Venus, but she ignores the calls. When Ian asks why, Venus opens up, explaining how Sydney constantly puts her down and uses her to feel better about her own insecurities. This conversation is heard by viewers, and it publicly humiliates Sydney. Her audience begins coming together to design an extremely dangerous challenge for her. At the party, two men arrive carrying a ladder. Sydney receives her new challenge. She must use the ladder to cross from one building to another. She's drunk, dizzy, and clearly not steady, but she decides to try anyway. She starts climbing clumsily and drops to her hands and knees to keep balance. However, for the challenge to count, she has to be the one filming. When she stands back up to grab her phone, people keep shouting advice, which only makes her more nervous. She drops the phone, and immediately, Nerve announces that Sydney has failed the challenge and is officially eliminated from the game. Across the country, other players are also failing deadly challenges. Some miss jumps over train platforms, others get caught in fires. Ty completes a terrifying challenge by standing still on train tracks while a train passes over him without injury, pushing him into first place. As more players are eliminated, only a handful remain. Soon after, Ian and Venus arrive at the party and are treated like celebrities. When Venus hears that Sydney lost, she goes to check on her and finds her acting aggressively toward JP. This sparks a heated argument between the two friends as they throw insults at each other over past betrayals. Things cross a line when Sydney makes a cruel joke about Venus's deceased brother, turning the fight deeply personal. Sydney crosses the line when she makes a cruel joke about Venus's dead brother. At that exact moment, Venus receives a new Nerve challenge, asking her to complete Sydney's failed challenge for $15,000. Fueled by anger and the need for payback, Venus accepts immediately and heads straight for the ladder. Unlike Sydney, Venus is calm and steady. She barely hesitates, climbs across with confidence, and reaches the other building without stopping. The crowd erupts in cheers, and Nerve announces that Venus is now in first place. Right after, Tommy finds Venus and drops a shocking truth. Her fight with Sydney was staged by Ian. It was actually Ian's challenge to manipulate her emotions on camera. Furious and feeling betrayed, Venus storms out of the party. Ian chases after her as people continue filming. He pulls her into an elevator and tries to explain that things are more complicated than they look, but says he can't tell her everything yet. Venus doesn't believe him anymore. She's exhausted by the danger and chaos and wants out. She runs out of the building and approaches a police officer, trying to explain what Nerve really is. The officer says no actual crime is being committed, and nearby spectators immediately turn on Venus, calling her a snitch. At the same time, Nancy discovers her bank account has been completely drained. She calls Venus in panic. Venus is already overwhelmed, especially when she sees Ian speeding away on his motorcycle. Suddenly, Ty appears, apologizes, and then punches Venus in the face, knocking her unconscious. It's his challenge. Venus wakes up inside a warehouse. Bright lights flick on, revealing the words, "Snitches get screwed," painted on the wall. A computer screen lights up as the robotic voice explains that Venus is now their prisoner for breaking the rules. They control her life and her family's lives, proving it by displaying personal documents on the screen. The voice tells her there's only one way out now. She must win the final round, starting by taking the Staten Island ferry. Venus kicks open the door and escapes, hiding when she hears people nearby. Suddenly, Ian appears in front of her and finally tells her the full truth. Ian and Ty played Nerve the previous year in Seattle. One of their friends died while attempting a climbing challenge. They went to the police, but no one took them seriously. It was ruled an accident. As punishment for breaking the rules, Nerve destroyed their families' lives. Ian's father lost his job, his sister's private photos were leaked online, and their identities were stolen. They were all pushed into a hidden game level known as Prisoner, a status between spectator and player. Ian and Ty have been trapped there ever since. The only way to escape is to win the final round, and now Venus is trapped in it too. Ian explains that he made a deal with the spectators. They deliberately gave him an impossible challenge to push Ty into third place. That way, Ian and Venus would reach the final together, and Ian could let Venus win. Venus hates the idea, but she lets Ian leave to complete his challenge. Then she calls Tommy for help. He's with Sydney, who now knows the truth, and agrees to meet them. When the girls finally meet again, they hug each other and apologize before getting straight to the problem. Venus admits that she wants to reach the final round, but more than that, she wants to destroy Nerve completely. She asks Tommy to alter the game's code and expose the real identities of every spectator watching. At the same time, she sends Sydney on a secret mission as part of the plan. Meanwhile, Ian repeats the same challenge that caused everything to fall apart last year. He climbs to the roof of a massive skyscraper and hangs from a crane using only one hand for 5 terrifying seconds while a drone records him. He's clearly terrified, but he manages to hold on, and at the end, he even flips off the camera. With that, Ian qualifies for the final. After Sydney completes her part of the plan, she meets up with Tommy and his hacker friends, who are already working on breaking into Nerve's open source code. Around the same time, Nancy finally discovers what Nerve really is. She calls Tommy, and he invites her to the hackers' hideout so they can explain everything face to face. Venus boards the Staten Island ferry, where someone discreetly leaves her a paper bag. At the same time, Ian encounters masked spectators on a train who guide him toward the final location. Eventually, Venus arrives at a massive arena. A security guard asks for her ticket, and instead, she reveals the gun hidden inside the bag. Thousands of people around the world log in to watch the final challenge. Inside, Venus notices the audience is filled with anonymous spectators wearing masks. Ian arrives moments later, and the rules of the final are revealed. Venus and Ian must shoot each other. Whoever fires first wins. They have only 20 seconds. The hackers rush to finish their work as the countdown begins. Tommy urges Venus to shoot, and she does, but she deliberately fires at the ground. No one wins. The crowd erupts in anger as Venus tries to leave, but a spectator fires a shot into the air to stop her. That spectator removes his mask, revealing himself to be Ty. He offers to shoot Ian instead, and the crowd cheers. Venus runs between them and calls the spectators cowards, accusing them of hiding behind masks and usernames and only finding bravery as a group. Ty ignores her words. Venus then dares him to shoot her, openly challenging the crowd's approval. A poll appears on spectators' phones, and the vote overwhelmingly supports Ty shooting Venus. Ty pulls the trigger. Ian screams as Venus collapses into his arms. At that exact moment, the hackers succeed. Real names flood the spectators' screens with a message stating they are now accomplices to murder. Panicked, people across the country disconnect instantly. Servers shut down one by one, leaving Nerve with nothing left to exist on. Enraged, Ian tries to shoot Ty, but Venus suddenly wakes up and stops him. It's revealed that calling Ty out was part of Sydney's plan all along. Ty's gun was loaded with blanks, and the blood on Venus was fake. With the truth exposed, Ty and Ian finally reconcile. Back at the hackers' hideout, everyone celebrates. The hackers even manage to recover Nancy's stolen money. After leaving the arena, Ian admits that his real name is Sam. Venus kisses him. Sometime later, Venus is happily attending art school, dating Ian, and maintaining healthier friendships with both Tommy and Sydney. And with that, Nerve, a game with no rules, comes to an end. Hope you enjoyed this story. At last, tell me in comments, if you get to know about this type of game, would you play it as a player? Thanks for watching. See you in next one.